Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with the eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Greetings to everybody out there in podcast land, and welcome to Heaping Spoonful. I'm Kelly Bass, and it is my pleasure, after decades of writing about restaurants for Little Rock, Arkansas-based newspapers and magazines, to be the host of this podcast and just talk about restaurants and talk to the people who make them great. Thanks to Benny Keith Foods for giving me the chance to cast a spotlight on chefs and restaurateurs. And today, a culinary director from across the Mid-South. We're in the Heaping Spoonful studio here at Benny Keith with Brandon Douglas, culinary director for 4 outstanding coffee shops in Little Rock, Arkansas area. So welcome, Brandon.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a great honor to be here, and thanks for the time to talk coffee, a little coffee shop talk with you.
Yeah. We are looking forward to it. So, you know, one of the culinary phenomena of the last 2 or 3 decades is the advent of specialty coffee drinks, and thus the advent of coffee shops, which are almost always more than just places to get coffee. Those of us of a certain age, I mean, when I was growing up, coffee was just coffee, and it was usually a pot at breakfast, whether you were home or you were out, or, you know, it was in the break room at work for the all-day coffee drinker. And it was just, you know, we had Folgers and Maxwell House and later a Mr. Coffee, you know, pot, but it was just your standard cup of Joe stuff. And and maybe it predated this, but I would always think that it was really kind of Starbucks that changed everything. Do you agree with that?
I would agree with that. I think if you put a little more context to it, I think coffee shops like ours have always been around, and your coffee aficionados knew what lattes and cappuccinos and espressos were. Starbucks certainly made it mainstream.
Right, okay.
Across the country, made it, and I don't know if you've noticed, but even the Starbucks that are going up currently are predominantly drive-through.
Yeah, that's their thing, and I live close to one, and when I come down the hill from my house, I immediately get in the left lane of Cantrell because I know the right lane's going to have people turning into Starbucks. Yeah. And more power to them. And I guess your point is well taken. So I might not have paid attention enough to known about a specialty locally owned coffee shop in the past. And then when Starbucks came up, and I started looking for them. And because I would always prefer to go to one of your places. When we travel, we look for local coffee shops. So I look to there are more than 33,000 Starbucks in the world, and about
That's unbelievable.
Half of those are in the United States. I've been in Manhattan where you can see more than one just from standing still. And, you know, in cities where Starbucks has established a foothold, locally owned and operated coffee shops, again, either were there or popped up, and the Little Rock area is proof of that. So you work for a team that made the decision to invest in the coffee shop business. When did they start thinking that, hey, maybe this is something we want to get into?
Well, the ownership team, one gentleman in particular, got a hold of Leiva's coffee. Mm-hmm. And that is a retail coffee that you can buy also out there. It's sold at different stores or different coffee shops that especially brew his bean. But the founder of that is Giovanni Leiva. And he has a huge vision. His family owns, I'm going to give you the short story. Right. Be free to look it up on the website when you can. But his family owns Coffee Bean Farm.
Okay.
In Guatemala. And I've met his grandmother.
Oh, cool.
And, his mother. And they came from Guatemala. And we're walking through the coffee trailer, and it's their whole family from the moment it gets planted and whatever team they have down there growing it. They send the beans here to Sherwood right off of their farm after they dry them there. It gets roasted right here in Sherwood, so only one turn from Guatemala to here, no middlemen.
Right.
And phenomenal roasting process out there in Sherwood that his team does out there. So then the big picture is to have some of the proceeds go back to help give to the community back there where they're from in Guatemala.
And so one of the owners that you work with got a hold of that coffee and said, man, this stuff is good.
And love the story.
And Gio's still involved with his operation.
Absolutely.
Oh, that is totally cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess once they saw that, then they saw other opportunities. So I sense we have talked before we started recording. I know that you indeed have a food service and restaurant background, and I guess that's one of the, besides being a fabulous human being, that's one of the reasons these guys hired you.
Well, thank you.
Because they're businessmen and you're a business guy, but you have the culinary background to help them push forward the operations that they have purchased and also to grow them and maybe diversify a little bit. And we'll talk about that in a minute.
Sure.
That's right. So they're not food service guys. They're guys that are looking for good business opportunities.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Well, we are recording this episode of Heaping Spoonful in early June of 2023, and you all operate 4 premier coffee shops in the areas. Muggs Cafe in the Argenta neighborhood of North Little Rock, a second Muggs Cafe in the Heights in Little Rock, Mylo's Coffee in Hillcrest, and Leiva's in Far West Little Rock. So walk our listeners, and you told me through the order and time frames generally of when you all got involved in those. Did it start with Leiva's?
Well, Leiva's was the first. Then the Muggs Cafe and Mylo's came on with acquiring those businesses. The objective was to get Leiva's Coffee into each one of those stores.
Okay,
and
so you're okay. So they're brewing and serving Leiva's Coffee in your other locations.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I see. Well, that makes perfect sense because you already know how good it is.
Correct. And like I said, they do good, nice roast. We have beautiful, dark, medium roasted coffee beans. Yeah.
And you know right where it's coming from because you've met the Guatemalan mother who's right there on the farm.
That's right. That's awesome.
That's cool. I mean, I doubt almost anybody that works in the coffee retail business can say, I know where those beans came from. I know where they were roasted. And now we're grinding them and making them for you.
I was showing my wife pictures of the farm because Gio shared, the story of Guatemala a little bit with us in a meeting not too long ago. And I showed my wife the pictures. I was like, hey, you should see the coffee farm. And when I showed her the pictures of this, it's over 100 acres of this vast land, she's like, oh, a farm. That's not what I pictured at all. It's like hills and mountains and just, it was beautiful scenery where these beans are grown.
A road trip to Guatemala or a flying trip to Guatemala.
I think we need.
I think it's a legitimate business expense for sure. So I'm sure it's not coincidental, and it wasn't coincidental when they opened them. But for those who aren't familiar with this area, I mean, Argenta, Hillcrest, and the Heights are 3 of the coolest neighborhoods, and they're neighborhoods that people like to hang out in. Now, this in Far West Little Rock, a lot of people live and work. I don't know if it's quite the hangout, although if you got a cool coffee shop and you got people working out there and living out there, I guess that it can be.
Well, there's a cool setup for outdoor hanging out at the trailer, the coffee trailer. Leiva's Coffee House is a trailer.
Okay.
And so there's a fire pit, nice lighting, great for the fall and the springtime. And then we're really one of the only coffee roasters that I know of right there in that western. I mean, when you say West Little Rock, it's out
way
there.
out there, right?
By the ranch and where they just put that new bank of the Ozarks. And so it's very much out there on its own. And so we get quite a bit of business of those people's commuting into work. So
sure. And, they all appreciate good coffee. And now you've got a good spot right there by them. Well, I've been lucky to spend quite a bit of time in Paris where my sister has raised her family and lived for more than 40 years. And, I've been in cafes and the coffee experience there is very different. It's very common to see someone walk into a cafe, walk up to the bar, order a coffee, which is always just a really small shot of espresso, basically shoot it down like medicine, pay, and be out of there in 2 minutes or less. But that's not what happens in your places. They're places to be and to enjoy your coffee, enjoy some food, spend some time, and enjoy yourself.
Not having spent any time in Paris, but yes, we have a lot of people who get that bottomless cup and hang out and study or just hang out with friends. I know my wife loves hanging out with friends of hers over coffee and tea. We have some great teas in our Muggs cafes and Mylo as well. and just hang out and talk. And
yeah, it's well, I'm kind of a 2 latte guy, both frothed and consumed at home before I go to work, though I certainly might have a third if I'm with somebody and we choose a coffee shop as a locale. But, coffee today is so many things to so many people. I mean, there's different styles. I mean, you just mentioned latte, cappuccino. I think you also mentioned something else. And different styles, different preparation methods, often cold or iced. Will you talk about what's hot, so to speak, in the world of boutique coffee? What are sort of the trends these days?
We get a mixed bag of just about everything. I'm actually picturing our product mix right off the top of my head. Latte still top dog in sales. It dominates anything we do, even from the bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit.
Yeah.
It dominates. It's always our number one seller. Then macchiatos are next, usually in that, and then mocha.
Macchiato is that?
It's just a different kind of an espresso shot kind of drink, like the latte. And then that's the stuff that I've learned coming on board is the different kinds and styles of espresso drinks, like the Americano, which is a watered down espresso. And you got the cortadas and then the Cubans, and we don't sell a whole bunch of those, but your coffee aficionados, like I mentioned earlier, come in and we'll order those obscure but very well known, if you will, coffee drinks. Like I said earlier, I think Starbucks has taken the cappuccino and the latte mainstream, but you still have those coffee aficionados that want to come and say, I'll take a Cuban and things of that nature.
And then more ice. I see more ice lately.
There's a lot of ice drinks. That is,
as we get into summer, you might see that even more.
Yeah, depending on the barista you may be talking to, they may say that's a Starbucks drink, but it's hot in Arkansas. I actually started putting a few cups of ice in my coffee when I met Chef Sam Choi.
Yeah.
He was at the culinary school when I was there, and he put a whole bunch of ice in it. But that's when I decided, speaking to something you stated earlier, I like my coffee immediately palatable.
Right.
So I don't need it screaming hot.
Yeah, I got you. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We're visiting today with Brandon Douglas, whose team has put together a force in the locally owned coffee shop market in Little Rock and North Little Rock, Arkansas. So hang on. We'll be right back.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
Welcome back to Heaping Spoonful and our visit today with Brandon Douglas. So you've told us about trends in coffee, and you mentioned in passing, I think, a bacon or sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit. So I know food fits into the equation. Do you have set food options at your 4 spots, or does it vary by location? And what is it? I mean, I would think obviously there's breakfast type things, so maybe some sweets and some savories. What kind of food do you all offer?
So at all 3 locations, Muggs Cafe, Mylo's, actually all 4 Leivas, we have some pastry options. Mm-hmm. Now at the Muggs Cafe, we have the same breakfast and lunch menu.
Right.
And then at Mylo, we have a little different breakfast and lunch menu that is just a little different because we do some gluten-free options there. We really try to focus on some more things like that in those locations.
Now, Leiva's is a trailer, so is it doing food or not really?
Just the pastries.
It's the pastries. Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned lunch. So you're not, while some people quit drinking coffee at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, others don't. And so when you're there at lunchtime, what are the hours of what time do I'm sure they start 6 or 7. What time do they close?
So currently it's 7 to 2:30. We will be running that Sunday through Wednesday, and we'll be open till 4. So the kitchen closes at 2:30, but we're open till coffee till 4.
Okay.
And then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday we're actually open from 7 p.m. all the way to 9 p.m. We just started launching a p.m. dinner service a couple of weeks ago, so we're really excited to try that dinner hour a little bit. And the menu is not like anything else you really have seen. It's got some food that you've seen everywhere else, but we're really kind of focused on that snack grazing kind of mentality. A lot of shareables are on that menu.
Sure.
For example, we have a Creole shrimp and andouille kind of cast iron pot. And so we send that out really for 2 people to share and snack on over a glass of wine or a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Okay. Is that already launched at Mugs and Mylo?
We're going into week 3 this week, so it's fresh off the presses.
Okay. So we hope people go back and listen to these episodes for years to come. But like I said, this is early June of 2023.
Yep.
So anytime you hear this is happening, and I think that's really. I don't think your team makes haphazard decisions, and you can gauge the market and gauge the investment. Yeah. But you also work with folks and yourself who have been actively working in the restaurant and food business for years, and so the menu sounds interesting. And again, that's at both Mugs locations and also at Mylo's.
Well, we're launching at Mugs in the Heights, and at Mylo we also have a different PM menu. Again, that's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday as well. Same thing. We have gluten-free like pita. We have gluten-free tortillas, and so handmade tortillas and gluten-free pita. And so it's a little bit more of a wrappy, sandwichy kind of cheese snack board kind of feel at Mylo.
I live less than a mile from Mylo, so I'll come in and check it out. But good for you. So I guess one of your goals is for food sales to continue to increase as a percentage of your revenue.
Of course, yeah. So I think that's the name of the game. Regardless, is in the food business we have to. So
right, and you got to extend your reach. Both now you've extended in terms of hours, but also in terms of offerings and getting people used to. Because honestly, there's not a ton of early dinnerish, happy hourish kind of options along in Hillcrest along Kavanaugh, so that fits right in.
It does actually.
So you mentioned maybe have a glass of wine. So you have non-coffee drinks. I'm sure you mentioned you have tea. I'm sure you have soft drinks, but so you do have beer and wine?
At Mugs Heights we do. Hopefully at Mylo here soon we'll be able to offer that as well. So coming down the pipe. Good.
That's really cool. Another thing I've always wondered about, and this also seems to have started at Starbucks, and we mentioned people liking to hang out. Is there a frustration with customers who come in, order a coffee, maybe a bite to eat, and then don't seem to ever want to leave? Or as long as it's not packed full and they're not taking a spot from anybody, is it just, hey, we welcome you to bring your laptop or, play games or do whatever you want to do?
It's pretty open.
Yeah.
I think that is the culture, like you had mentioned earlier, that's just kind of started in our coffee atmosphere. I'm kind of thinking, hanging out at that lodge in the mountains. I don't know why. And just hanging out with friends and having a cup of coffee, playing board games. And you see that actually in some of our coffee shops all over the country. And I think that is just part of the feel here. And I think people know I can go there and hang out, and I can hang out until they lock the door and kick me out and study or read a book. I think it's a little different than what you described in France as far as
that's just more like it's like they're doing medicine or something. It's just like, I need this. I gotta have it.
It's for survival, not relaxation.
Right.
It's right.
Pound and go. I see my coins on this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's like I say, the neighborhoods where you are, and even more now that you've got those big office complex out in West Little Rock. I mean, those are places that are neighborhoods, true neighborhoods, Argenta, Hillcrest, Heights. And so having a coffee shop as a neighborhood gathering place serves a real purpose of building community.
Yeah, I may be going out on a limb here, but I'm thinking of my demographic, the mid-40s. Right. Grew up watching Friends.
Yeah.
How many hours we're spending in that coffee shop just hanging out. And I don't know if it, like I said, I may be going out on a limb on here, but that may have also kind of helped kind of generate that mentality.
I think you're right.
Very popular show.
Yeah, yeah. So, again, you talked a little earlier about just helping with operational issues from closing procedures to, all the things that you have to do to keep a restaurant in top operating form. I guess there's a decent amount of training that has to be involved in getting your baristas up to speed on all of those different ways people want their coffee prepared and served.
Yes, tons of training on that end. I've learned a ton since I've joined the team myself, as far as pulling shots and what does that mean, and an espresso has to be at this temperature, and so there's a lot to learn from the coffee standpoint. And then my role on the culinary standpoint, now that we're doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner, create these menus, go in, do the teaching and training, leave the tools behind for the cooks and
Right.
and the managers at each store are the ones who are driving the front of the house experience with the baristas. And again, doing the training, the cultivating, leaving the tools behind. This is how we make this coffee. We make the French dip sandwich like this, and here's the recipe and pictures.
Sure.
And so that's the stage that we're in currently, especially with the PM service, the dinner service.
Right, and because your culinary background goes, I mean, again, by my standards, you're a young man, but you've been doing it for well over. I mean, we were just talking with Rusty Mathis, who's the general manager here at Benny Keith in North Little Rock, and you guys have known each other for 10, 12 years.
At least.
Yeah, and again, have a lot of different perspectives because you've worked at a lot of different places and helped build these same kind of programs. So that's exciting, and it's exciting to see. Again, it's not just same old. Here's what we do. Let's look to do some different stuff for sure. So we're talking about training. So how is it that they make those cool designs on top of lattes? Is that? I mean, it's obviously training. Is there some little trick to making those cool things?
It's about the foam.
Yeah,
it's about the foam on the that they do when they do the lattes, and it's really quite amazing to watch happen as people are learning. And goodness, you can look out online, and there's some
I need to get the
immaculate people that are very well crafted at this. And we're hiring, by the way.
Yes.
So with all that being stated, it is truly an art form, and they just keep getting better at it. The more creative people get, and the thicker they get the foam frothed, and the weight of the espresso is actually really quite a neat dynamic on how all that works.
Well, you were just talking, you led me right to my next question because you were talking about your hiring, and I think I see we're hiring signs in lots of places.
Everywhere.
A lot in the food service business. So
everywhere.
We know that labor shortages have been an issue for many, particularly I think when reopenings after COVID, people maybe reassessed what they wanted to do, and they had the dynamic was different with some of the government assistance and things. Is a big part of your job, or at least your team's job, attracting and retaining talent? I mean, that's something you got to spend quite a bit of time making sure. We love you. We want you to love us, and let's make sure you're feeling good about working here, and let's just make this place better than ever.
We've been pretty good since I've started, as far as retaining the team that we currently have. Mm-hmm. Took quite a bit of work to get that team together. So retention, I think, kind of holds its own. I think we have a great management team right now that are developing a place of where people want to be to work, and our guests want to be to enjoy their coffee or their lunch or their breakfast. So I think that's in place. The retention, for the most part, I think has been good, but getting help has truly been a challenge. Once we get them, I think it's all hands on deck trying to figure out how we can keep them energized.
Just get them through the door, just because there's a lot of competition. That's right. It's a seller's market in terms of labor these days. But like you say,
true.
The best thing you can do is create a place that people like to be. And when people like to be working there, then people like to be enjoying their coffee and now their food there, and it just all adds to itself.
I've tried to hire people away from Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
And it is tough. I've offered people salary positions before, and like you just mentioned, like if people like where they are,
yeah,
it makes all the difference in the world.
Well, Chick-fil-A kind of sets the pace in service, and that's a model to aspire to, because again, a chicken sandwich is sort of a chicken sandwich, but there's a lot of loyalists, and a lot of that's the way they're treated by the employees. So Good for you. So without doing any real research, I haven't dug through the internet, but the only other, I work downtown Little Rock, and the only locally owned spots I think about are really in our neighborhood, which is Nexus, which is there on President Clinton, and there's the 2 Fidel locations. Is there a lot of competition in your neighborhoods, or are you all kind of the coffee spot for those 4 neighborhoods where you are?
So we're pretty much the premier local coffee shop in each one of our locations. I'm thinking we have a pretty heavy competitor in North Little Rock nearby. Mylo, we have another pretty heavy competitor nearby. And then in the Heights, we're kind of the only coffee shop in that particular area, at least in that stretch of Kavanaugh. But there's some phenomenal coffee shops all over town.
Okay.
So it is a tough market, but I think we have an advantage in some ways because we do have the breakfast, lunch, and dinner options. It's not just come in and have coffee.
We also have brand equity. I mean, people know, and I've had many a meeting at Muggs and Argenta because that's a place. I could talk for a long time about how cool I think Argenta is and the restaurant scene, and I've had folks from those restaurants and from Flyway Brewery here, and there's a lot of good vibes down there. And then again, Hillcrest is a hangout neighborhood. It's a walk the streets neighborhood. You'll see so many people I know out the window of your shop with walking their dogs and cruising up and down. It's just a real pedestrian friendly place, and that helps. And then the same, I've been to By the Glass right down from the, really cool wine bar right down the street from your Muggs in the Heights. And your Muggs in the Heights was a Starbucks.
Yes, it was.
And they left, and it was very publicly announced that they left because there wasn't a drive-through. And I know, as we said earlier, they're really focusing on drive-thrus because a lot of people, it's almost the French model. I just need this coffee on my way to work. But then again, if you don't have to just grab it and run, come on into Muggs in the Heights and hang out.
We do have some plans for each one of those down the road to kind of put a unique spin on the interior. Mm-hmm. So we have that looking forward to as well. You mentioned, I thought of the drive-through when you mentioned that. So thinking that more warm coffee shop feel in a couple of the other locations. So we're looking to make some upgrades here and there, and we're looking forward to that in the near future. So, well,
I know that we talked a little before we started, and you've got other veteran folks on your team that have run successful places that didn't. We all know it's about the food and in your case the coffee and the other drinks. It's also about the vibe and the interior. So, it's encouraging to see what you guys are doing. I'm excited about it. I'm a consumer of those goods, and I'm in those neighborhoods often. So, I really appreciate you taking time to be our guest today, and continued good luck with all you got going in the coffee world. We look forward to in Little Rock and North Little Rock, and we look forward to hearing what you guys have coming next, because you've got a good team and a good momentum, and we might just have to do another podcast here in a year and say, hey, look at all the things you've done since we visited in early June of 2023. So thank you, Brandon. Thanks to all of you who are out there listening to this episode of Heaping Spoonful. Remember, we post them on the first and third Tuesdays of each month. So please check out the ones you've missed and keep an eye out for the new ones. Goodbye, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.